Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So in the thoughts that I want to share this morning, I'm going to take us back several millennia, and then I'm going to take us back several weeks. So the talented duo, the Indigo Girls, sang a song, and one of the lines in that song, Closer to Find, one of their most famous songs, was, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable, and lightness has a call that's hard to hear. So sometimes when it comes to goodness and the call to do that which is good, the call to go into a positive space, it is harder to hear that because the cry of darkness often is so overpowering. Moses first spoke to the children of Israel while they were slaves and said, "You are going to be redeemed." Velo shamu el Moshe, they couldn't even hear Moses because they were so beaten down. They couldn't actually listen to that promise that things were going to get better. And of course, the redemption occurred. And of course, our ancestors stood at the sea, didn't think they would be able to crossed through, sang the song of thanksgiving. And then this same group is going to be standing at the base of Mount Sinai as the revelation begins. And the revelation is remarkable. It is dramatic. There is thunder and there is lightning, and the people experience this revelation. And afterwards, the Torah says, V'chol ha'am ro'im, they all saw the sounds of the shofar, the sounds that were somehow revealed. How could they have seen them? Interestingly, the people will then say to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen." Venishma'a, if God speaks, we will not be able to survive. So even at this moment, they cannot fully listen. They cannot fully hear. What do they need to hear? Their obligations, their responsibilities. This ragtag group that were slaves weeks ago are now standing at the foot of the mountain, and God is saying to them, I expect you to create a society that is based on justice, where people can be ensured that they're not going to lose their lives, that they're not going to lose their property. It was difficult for them to hear. I want to just throw out that Egypt is a big part of our psyche, our oppression, our powerlessness. But we don't just need to remember Egypt, we also need to remember Sinai. We also need to remember that we are called to help create, using our freedom, using our power, a world that is just. So that's the millennia ago. And now I'm going to take you back several weeks. So you all know, because you've been following, that several weeks ago, Israel was accused by the International Court of Justice of perpetuating genocide against the Palestinian people. And one of the people who came forward in Israel's defense, representing the state of Israel, is a man by the name of Dr. Tal Becker, who is a lawyer by training. He also has academic training. I got to know him through my participation in the Hartman Institute. He is somebody who has been involved in negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians, and he is so thoughtful and so capable that he would give us analyses of each step of the negotiations process that he was involved in. So here he is being called to defend the state of Israel against this accusation. And I want to share with you how he did that and how that relates to the overall theme that I am putting forth this morning. So he is standing there and he begins in what I am going to argue was ultimately a Sinai moment by saying that the term genocide, many of you may know this, was actually coined by a Polish Jew. So the Jew, lawyer Raphael Lemkin, sought a way to understand the uniqueness of the atrocity, the systematic atrocity that the Nazis perpetuated against the Jewish people. And so in the 1940s, he coined this term, which basically means that you are deliberately committing crimes with, quote, the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. So Tal Becker went on to give a description of the attacks on October 7th. He said they were perpetuated intentionally by Hamas in keeping with their stated purpose of destroying the Jewish people. If anything, Becker argued, Hamas should be accused of perpetuating genocide, not Israel, who was fighting a war that they didn't start and that they didn't ask for. And so Israel, he argued, has the right and responsibility to defend her citizens as any nation would. Now, here is the Sinai moment, and it is extraordinary when you think about it. So we then argued the following, and again I quote, "We present the realities of Hamas's attacks not because they release Israel of its obligations to uphold the law as it defends its citizens and territory. We do so because it is impossible to understand the armed conflict in Gaza without appreciating the nature of the threat Israel is facing and the brutality and lawlessness of the armed forces confronting it." So that was the Sinai moment. He is talking about an oppression, an attack that Israel sustained, and saying, we must respond within the confines of the law, which is what it is that we are doing. We are a sovereign nation. And notwithstanding what we have been on the receiving end, we have to conduct ourselves as a sovereign nation. Now, of course, we know as a result what happened in the short term, and God willing, in the long term, Israel will not be unjustly convicted of that which, as he put it, is a charge that should legitimately be leveled against the other side. So I want to just share the following conceptualization. There is so much Mitzrayim, so much Egypt that is part of our experience. We have experienced powerlessness. We have experienced oppression. We have been on the receiving end of that much which is so unjust and so unfair. And we have to bear that, bear the memory of that, bear the recognition of that, and at the same time, we have to carry Sinai with us. The recognition that we have a responsibility to preside over a society, and more so a nation, that is a beacon of law and democracy and rights, not just for the region, but also for the world. And that is what he demonstrated in that particular moment. And I just want to say to each of us, whether it is in this community, whether it is on university campuses where our children and grandchildren are fighting to exist with basic legitimacy as Jewish children, that we need to bear not just Egypt, which is our legitimate grievances at being on the receiving end of oppression, but also Sinai, which is our commitment to presiding over, creating, disseminating a real commitment to justice and to rights, not just for our people, but for all people. So I urge us on this day, when we remember standing at Sinai, to carry Egypt with us, but also not to forget to carry Sinai with us. We carry with us the burdens of our powerlessness. We also carry with us the responsibility that comes with our power. And the world needs to understand that, yes, we are part of a people. We are connected to a sovereign nation that experienced Egypt, but that also experienced Sinai. The people who will never understand that will never understand. But we need to believe that. And thousands of years later, despite the persecution and despite the discrimination, we need to be able to bring Sinai into the world as we have been and as we'll continue to do. Shabbat Shalom.